So good afternoon here in the UK. It's Tuesday the 26th of Jan, and I have another Esther here, Esther Nagle. She is, I've known Esther for some time. We did a lot of women's networking together in the past. I've never ever got around to taking part in one of her yoga classes. I know another yoga teacher, and so I always used to go to her because she's more local to me. Yeah, now in lockdown, so everything's a possibility, isn't it? We can go virtual, do online classes. So it doesn't matter who does it, where you are. You can do it anywhere in the world with internet. So Esther's kindly offered to come in. I approached her to give us a bit of information on breathwork, so the power of the breath, basically to calm the mind and also to provide healing for the body. So with this understanding that the mind and the body are totally intrinsically inseparable, really. They're totally connected, and what affects one affects the other. So so Esther, you worked with the breath for many years, I know, but please take a few moments to introduce yourself to those in the audience here who do not know you, have never encountered you before, and also how breathwork, why breathwork for you, why it's been your part of your journey.
Thank you, Esther. So hi everyone. I'm Esther. As Esther.
This is weird. Yeah.
Never meet anyone called Esther, and it's really weird to be on a call with you, sort of taking your name back. I got into breath when I trained to be a yoga teacher. In 2014, I qualified in 2014. So up until that point, I was a heavy drinker, a smoker. I liked smoking lots and lots of marijuana as well as cigarettes. Very enthusiastic smoker, and I was also asthmatic. So I had a bit of a self-sabotage issues going on, and I'd been living that kind of mad, self-destruction life for about 20 years at that point. The yoga teaching actually came as a result of a breakdown. So in 2013, I had what was basically a 20 years in the making breakdown. It had been a long time coming, and when I gave up my full-time job, and then I was looking at living on income support as a mother of two. I had two children at home. I had three sons, but the eldest was off having his adventures by that point. And I decided that yoga was, I loved yoga, and I thought yoga teacher training would be a really good way to kind of find a way that I could earn money while also caring for myself a little bit more. I sort of realized I needed to change my life a little bit. Didn't want to do anything. I didn't even entertain the idea of stopping drinking or smoking. I didn't want to change my life that much at that point. But through the yoga teacher training, I actually did give up drinking and smoking. That became my path to recovery and to healing. And learning to breathe was I've always said, because it felt very much like learning to breathe was actually the biggest part of that. Because once I was able, I have a dust allergy as well. So for years, my nose was always really blocked. So I couldn't breathe properly. I had my adenoids taken out when I was a kid. I couldn't breathe through my nose at all until I was 41. I gave up dairy. I became a vegan. And as soon as I stopped consuming dairy products, that mucus kind of, and I was able to breathe through my nose. And once I could breathe properly, it's like everything changed. I was able to sleep, which was a bit of a novelty in itself. I'd had insomnia since I was a little girl, a lot of sleep problems. And I found that I was becoming able to deal with life differently. So I had a very acrimonious separation from my youngest son's father, and we were embroiled in this really vicious ongoing battles over custody and contact and money and all of the things that happen when you have a savage breakup. And I started to notice that I was dealing with the arguments that were coming up differently. I was able to step back a little bit, and instead of lashing out, and instead of just reacting to everything he said and prolonging the argument, I was able to step back and think, okay, right, so he's saying that to wind me up, so I'm just going to stay calm and let it pass. And so it started to change how I viewed the world, because when you're not kind of waiting for the world to punch you, you're not kind of holding yourself in that fight. I wasn't looking for the fight all the time. And I gradually got to a point halfway through my training. I mean, I'd done a lot of other stuff as well, but through the breathing predominantly, I developed coping strategies that were meaning I was able to deal with life. And so I got to a point where I had a really bad hangover one morning, and I'm just I don't know why I'm doing this to myself anymore, because all the reasons why I was drinking in the past, I'd either done a lot of healing on the kind of underlying issues, or I had these better coping strategies to deal with the day-to-day stuff that was coming up and prompting me to run to the shop for drink. So I just got to this point where I was like, I don't need this anymore. Actually, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to do this to myself anymore. And so I stopped drinking after 20 years, and having recognized that actually I was an alcoholic. There's no getting around it. There was definite deep addiction there. I gave up drinking and smoking on the same day, which would have been impossible previously.
Cold turkey, was it?
But it wasn't even, it didn't even feel like cold turkey. I mean, giving up drinking, just giving up can be really dangerous. So it's not something that's recommended. I cut down gradually, because I was wanting to stay sober in the week so I could do my yoga practice. And then I was kind of going crazy at the weekends instead of drinking every day, which I had been doing. But then I just got to this point where I just thought, no, okay, I can deal with that. So then when challenging situations arose, I would just return to my practice and I would breathe. And instead of wanting to fight the world, I could just go in and calm myself. And, it's quite handy, because there's been rather a lot that's happened in the last few years that has kind of challenged my coping strategies, to say the least. And, I'm still sober, and I've not come close to breaking that sobriety at any point. And I can't, apart from a couple of moments of thinking, oh, well, I could have a drink, I've not had any moments where I thought I wanted to, and I've not had to kind of fight that urge. It was quite the definite end to that part of my life. And it came about through breathing more than I think anything else. So that gave me this toolkit to manage my emotions, to relax my body, to calm my mind. Got me through the last six years and 3 months since I stopped drinking. And it's also now, because I discovered, you may have seen me writing about this, but I discovered a couple of years ago that I've got ADHD, and kind of probably the underlying root cause of everything else that happened in my life. I had ADHD since I was little and just never knew about it.
Diagnosed?
No. 46 years old I was diagnosed. And so the breath now is really helpful for that, because all the problems, the trouble, the challenges that ADHD presents are issues around focus, emotional regulation, being able to quieten your mind, or even just be able to follow a train of thought from one second to the next. It's like there's 500 things going on in this head at all times. So sometimes I need to be able to just slow everything down a little bit. So I use my breath for that. I use my breath to help me to regulate. Emotional dysregulation is a really big problem in ADHD, particularly for women. And being able to kind of go into my breath practices helps to keep me at an emotional kind of, it's not that, it's like that, as opposed to, like a wild epic roller coaster. So it's been life-changing. Learning to breathe for me has been life-changing. I honestly don't think I'd still be alive if it was. I would have drunk myself to death by now. So yeah,
that's a really, really powerful testimony to, isn't it?
Yes.
Supporting the idea that breathwork is absolutely pivotal and so important for all aspects of our health, you know, physical,
Oh, well,
mental, emotional.
yes. Yeah. I mean, we can't last very long without taking a breath. And you can take a breath.
But yeah, that just leads me nicely on to the next questions, because obviously, what are the best ways to breathe? Because you know, we go through life, we're totally unconscious of the breath. I mean, if anything, COVID has actually made us more aware of the breath, because when we're breathing back in our carbon dioxide in the mask, then we're thinking we are a little bit panicky because we're breathing more shallowly, or we're breathing less oxygenated breath. So what are the best ways to breathe, and how can they benefit us both physiologically and psychologically?
So the best way to breathe is slow, deep breaths that actually make your lungs move. Now, most people, when you start learning, when we come into the world, we breathe perfectly. You know, you watch babies breathe, and they are using every millimeter of
their chest cavities, isn't it, raised?
And you know, and the belly goes out, and their whole lungs are involved in that breath. But as we grow up, because we develop really bad posture, we develop really bad habits, we slouch all the time. And then the minute you sit in anything other than a straight backed position, you're cutting off parts of the lungs. You know, you're restricting how much you can breathe into your lungs. So you want to make sure that you're breathing into the full capacity of your lungs, which if you've never done any breath practices, you're probably not going to be able to at first, because like any muscles, those muscles in your lungs, because they've not been used over the years, they don't know, you know, your brain doesn't know how to do that. You know, breath comes, it all comes in the brain. So you need to retrain your brain to know that actually you need to activate the whole of the lungs. So it does take a bit of work, but when you're filling the whole of the lungs, you can feel your whole body moving in response, not your whole body, but you can feel your whole chest area moving in response to it. And breath should be slow. You know, we are very fast, shallow breathers naturally. And fast, shallow breathing is associated with stress. You know, if you think about the way that your body reacts to stress, your breath goes faster and it becomes shallower. That's a stress response. Slow, deep, relaxed breathe. Slow, deep breathing is associated with the relaxation response. So if you don't want to feel stressed all the time, even if all you do is slow your breathing down, you're going to feel a lot less stressed, which isn't going to change the stressful things that are going on around you, but it's going to improve your ability to deal with them. So to be able to breathe properly, the first thing that you want to do is to be aware of your breath. You know, and actually notice, because what a lot of the time people know, you know, when I try and teach people how to breathe, and, you know, you start by focusing your awareness on the different parts of your lungs and putting your hands in different places so you can feel the movement. And people can't feel movement. You know, you're breathing in, but you're not actually feeling your lungs expanding at all. And when you're breathing properly, you will see that expansion in the lungs. So becoming aware of what's happening in your lungs, or what doesn't seem to be happening in your lungs, is a really good first step. And what you'll also find is the more that you bring your awareness to that, the more your breath kind of just becomes better. So if all you do is pay more attention to your breath will start to improve, because your body knows how to do it. It's just that we've
forgotten.
Body connection, we've forgotten how to do it, because we're not paying attention to it, because making the effort to do it properly. Then, you know, the body becomes lazy. Start by bringing awareness to the breath and to your posture as well, because, you know, if you're sitting like this, you can't breathe properly. So you want to be sitting up nice and straight to be able to do it as well. Slow breath, straight back, and paying attention to your breath is that's it in a nutshell, really.
So I mean, so you're saying basically it's our posture, the way we've been sitting over a desk, that makes us forget how to breathe properly, and you know, and to start being more mindful of both in our workplace and also when we're resting, isn't it? How we position ourselves, and to take more, you know, focus that mind back onto the body through the breath.
Yeah. I find now, I mean, I used to slouch all the time, but since I've been doing yoga and being more, I find it really uncomfortable after a certain time to sit in anything other than straight back position. But when you first start, that in itself is quite uncomfortable because your body's not used to sitting.
Not used to it, yeah. It feels like a strain.
It does. And, you know, that's what puts people off then, because you think, oh, no, that's uncomfortable. That can't be right. But actually, you're sitting in the right position. It's just that your body's got used to slouching back, you know, and you're sitting like this or whatever. And it's
couch.
But that's what we get. We get used to our uncomfortable comfort blankets, don't we? You know, comfort blankets and comfort zones aren't actually comfortable. But we get used to them. So we think,
yeah. So, what is best for your clients when you try to help them focus on the breath and to get out of this sort of these bad habits? You know, please share a few tips and how that's really transformed what they experience and how they go through life and how they can cope with more awareness and strength of mind and spirit.
So one of the things that I like to recommend is just setting alarms. You know, I've got a Fitbit that I can set to buzz. I can set alarms on it. It's got this every hour reminders to move. So I can, you can use those. You can set alarms on your phone or establish, when you have your first cup of tea in the morning, when you're washing the dishes, when you one thing that I've always loved to recommend is when you're in traffic. If you're stuck in traffic, and not so much of an issue now, probably,
no.
But you're in traffic, every time you stop at a red light, or every time you have to stop behind another car at a junction or any time, just take a couple of deep breaths. Because, I came up with that, obviously, pre-COVID, when people were rushing to work and rushing and getting stuck in traffic. But if you're doing that when you're doing other things, then that's going to keep you calm. So if you are doing something like getting stuck in traffic, or you're at your desk all day long now and you can't go anywhere, so you're just getting stressed because of everything that's happening. The more you can become aware and set those little milestones throughout the day, little markers throughout the day, where you just take 3 breaths, or even just look and say, right, so what's my breath like now? Is it shallow? Is it deep? How am I feeling? And you'll start to become more aware of, through your body, you'll become more aware of your body as well. And you'll become more aware of your emotional state. Because if you notice that your breath is really shallow, really fast, you might notice, oh yeah, I'm feeling a bit agitated now. So maybe take a couple of breaths and then you can, relax yourself. And it's about making these things habits. So, setting every day for a month, you're going to have 5 alarms going off throughout the day to remind yourself to take 3 deep breaths, or, every hour, or whatever works for you. The more you do that, the more it'll become habit and the more tuned into your breath you'll become. And I had a lovely bit of feedback the other day from somebody that I did a one-to-one session with. I do one-to-one sessions. And she messaged me and she said, I was just thinking about sending you a message, because she was messaging me about something else. She said, as soon as I started thinking about messaging you, I started thinking about my breath. And because she started thinking about her breath, she realized that she was feeling a bit tense and that her shoulders were. So she did some breath work. She did some breathing, and she got herself down to this calmer place. And that was just from thinking about me. As soon as these
it's the association, isn't it?
Yeah. So as soon as these patterns, whatever it is, it could be something like, it might be that you attach your behavior to a particular thing, or it might be that every time you see me popping up on your social media feed, because I do that quite often, you might think, oh yeah, there's Esther, right, I'll breathe. And I just love that, I just love that feedback it worked, it was an instant working for her, that she just had that association. So it's making those patterns that are going to work for you, making those links that are going to work for you to remind you to do it. It's also a good way to start and end your day. So a couple of breaths before you get into bed, or while you're lying in bed, a couple of breaths in the morning, before you start your work, before you get out of bed, even just, you know, creating these moments where that's going to be what you're going to do is a great way to use this.
Mm. Mm. And are there any other techniques that we can use in conjunction with the breath that, you know, really work well together? Any other?
Well, there's, oh gosh, there's everything that yoga offers, you know, breath practices that I teach are part of yoga. They're pranayama practices from yoga. So anything that you do to relax the tension in your body, you know, if your body is really physically tense, you struggle to just release all that tension just through breathing. You know, it will help, but you can do the postures and the releasing practices from yoga, which will also help. They'll help you to be able to sit in a better position to do breath practices. I mean, that's what yoga asana was originally created for, was to get the body so that you could sit. It wasn't about being super flexible and all the things that yoga seems to be now. It was about getting the body so that you can sit for long periods of time. So the more you can release tension from your body in whatever way, you know, it might not be yoga postures, it might be going for a walk, it might be running, it might be anything else that helps you to release that tension, you know, in your shoulders, in your back, wherever you get that tense feeling. Another thing that I like to do as well is with the breath, if you're looking at using this as some kind, you know, as a sort of healing or self-discovery practice, which I do, is writing. So just after you've done your breath practices, you know, sit and do your breathing for 5-10 minutes, and then get your notebook and just write, you know, without not, I'm going to write this particular thing.
Particular intention.
Free writing. Free writing, because when you've got your mind and your body in that more relaxed state, you're going to be tuned into that part of you that you're not really connected to when you're rushing around and being busy. And it's a really powerful way to get into the truth, your truth, you know, that accessing that inner wisdom that we all have, but we don't really know how to get to very often. So yeah, if you are a journaler, if you are looking to kind of heal anything in yourself, the combination of breath work and then journaling, free writing, or working from prompts, you know, you can find writing prompts and work from a prompt if you just don't like sitting and free writing. But it is so powerful. I've done some real sort of like mind shifts, or I've written some great blog posts doing that. I've made connections that have like made like 40 years of mystery of Esther clear, you know, like, oh, I understand that now. So that's a really powerful practice, you know, to combine.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it that way, because I've done meditation, and often with meditation you do start with a bit of breath work. But yeah, I've never consciously thought that breathing and doing particular breathing techniques can really help sort of release the dam of creativity and access you know, ideas and and I suppose it is true, because physiologically then maybe if we're breathing better, we actually, you know, the circulation improves, and then we get more clarity, get more mental, and
also creativity doesn't happen when there's lots of, you know, mental noise. With that blocks the creativity. So you have kind of, you know, it's like when I don't know if you're a walker. I'm a walker, so I'll go out for a walk and I'll have so many ideas coming to me.
Yeah, same here.
If I'm not listening to music, or if I'm not listening to a podcast, if I'm just allowing myself in the silence, or the bird song, the sounds of nature, I have so many ideas, because when you're constantly inputting into your brain, you're constantly bombarding your brain with other people's ideas, or with stress and your own worry and negative thinking, and you know that kind of rumination that we can sometimes get caught up in. With that's going to block your creativity. Whereas if you then allow everything to get quiet, and it's not about emptying your mind. People think you have to get this, like, I'm not thinking. That's like, you know, people will go and practice for decades to be able to get there. but you can quieten your mind and you can just find that space where the ideas can flow. And it can be an incredibly powerful way to unblock your creativity. So if if you are suffering from any sort of writer's block, or, you're staring at canvas, take 5 minutes away and go and just sit and just focus on your breath for a few minutes, and you might that will help.
Okay, that's a great idea and great tip. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And before we finish, is there any particular project or several projects that you're working in that you'd like to sort of share with our audience here, and and if they're interested, how they could get involved and connect with you?
Well, I've just launched a new series of online yoga classes, which they're going to be starting at the beginning of February. So I've got classes on a Monday evening, Wednesday evening, and a Sunday morning at the moment. I might add another one. But they're all available online, so I can give you the link if you want to share that.
Yeah.
I am also, as I've mentioned, I have ADHD, and I want to kind of focus a lot of my work is going to be focusing on helping women with ADHD, because I know that these tools can be so helpful for, like I mentioned, about the emotions and focus, and just helping, hyperactive people need to find ways to stay calm a little bit, and to channel that energy and to go within a little bit more. So, if anybody has ADHD and would like to talk about how yoga can help, or breathing in particular can help with that, then I have a website that I'm still developing it, but that's called Still Wild Mind. So that's stillwildmind.com, and that is more primarily on ADHD, but there's going to be stuff about recovery on there as well, because I can't shut up about that.
Yeah. Well, that is a powerful transformation, isn't it? Moving away from dependency. It's incredible.
Gosh.
And I know because you've written a book before, haven't you? You've sent me an autobiographical.
Yeah. So it's what do I call it? Part memoir, part book, and part yoga for beginners guide.
Okay.
So there is quite a lot about
all in the pot mixed up.
But it's my story, and it's how the yoga philosophy and the yoga practices helped me.
Because yoga itself is a very, very ancient practice, isn't it? I mean, gosh, is it even older than, I don't know, certain, because we see the hieroglyphs on the tombs, the Egyptian tombs, that there was reflexology done on the feet. It's probably, I think yoga is even older than that, than Hindu, isn't it?
Yeah. And yoga is not what most people think it is either. People think of yoga as the complicated postures that you have to be super flexible to do, and that's just one aspect of yoga. And the more advanced gymnastics postures, they're only about 100 or so years old. They are very new. Not what yoga is. Yoga is a philosophy. Yoga is a way of life. It is a whole way of thinking, a way of living, a way of viewing the world. It is not about whether you can sit in the lotus position or, do a back bend. It's not about that. And I get really frustrated with that misconception, because it means that a lot of people think that's not
do it. Yeah.
And they think they can't do it. And I get very upset about that, because you don't go into anything new thinking that you have to be able to do it. But people get put off from yoga because they can't do it. And it's like, my brother learned to play the piano 6 months ago. He'd never played the piano before. If he'd thought he couldn't learn because he couldn't already play it, he wouldn't be able to play it now. You have to start as a beginner. And people seem to think that if they can't touch their toes, then they can't do yoga. And it's not about that at all. There is so much that yoga has to offer, whatever your age, whatever your mobility, whatever your flexibility, your health, your everything. There's something there for everyone. And I think that, Instagram's got a lot to answer for it.
I know my sister, I was always like in awe of praising yoga, because I've done it since leaving school, and you know, I've been obviously not been doing it always consistently. It's been difficult during COVID. I used to go to a class quite regularly. I just, funny enough, I don't know, I seem to get busy doing stuff online and yet not focusing on my own self-care. But yeah, but you say, I can't switch off. I can't switch off. You know, it's like these postures and I've got to hold them and I can't switch off. But, you know, or I can't relax enough. I can't seem to just sort of let go and allow this thing, you know, this practice to develop. So it's difficult, isn't it? And I found that a little bit with Pilates. I experimented with Pilates many years ago, and I just got a little bit impatient because I thought it was too slow. I preferred yoga because there was a little bit more dynamic movement about it. But you know, they're both very good. But yeah, so any ideas for people who are really literally, they're like buzzing all the time, they just really cannot slow down? Is it really coming back to the breath again, that we just gotta learn to take deeper breaths, and that eventually will still the body and still the mind?
Yeah, well, the type of yoga that I teach is a very slow sort of yoga. It's not dynamic yoga. It's very slow. It's not flow yoga. You know, you do one pose, hold that, and then you rest, and then you move on to the next. And before I did that training, I went to lots of different types of yoga. I did the fast yoga, the hot yoga, the super aerobic yoga, and I loved it all. But none of it helped me on any level other than physically. And I looked good, you know, except because I was always drunk. I discovered this type of yoga. I mean, I went to the first yoga teacher training class. I had no idea what sort of yoga I was.
What type of yoga is it? Because there's so many different
yoga. It's hatha yoga. And it's very, very traditional style of yoga. And I am sure that the slowness of it and the emphasis on the breath is why it worked for me. And now I know I've got ADHD. I understand even more why that worked, because at no point is my mind quiet and calm. And, you know, somebody asked me today about that, you know, like my mind wanders. Is that going to be a problem? And I was like, well, actually, do you want to know a secret? So is mine. So even when I'm teaching the class, you know, I got all sorts of things going on in my head. But the fact that I could tell you at the end of that posture, I could say what I was thinking about, rather than having 40 things going in my head and I couldn't pinpoint one thing. I've got one thing in my head. And that is, you know, that might be taking all my attention, but it's slowing my mind down so much that it allows me to just be. And I've given up on the idea that I'm ever going to be able to find any kind of proper, like, real stillness and quietness in my head. There's always going to be stuff going on in my mind. But being able to actually follow the train of thought is such a, that's I think complete quiet, complete emptiness in my head would freak me out completely, because it's always been such a noisy place. I don't think I could stand it if there was nothing going on. I think I'd worry I was having some problem with my brain. But, you know, that don't come into it expecting that you need to be able to do these things. You know, if you want to start coming to a yoga class, don't expect that you need to be able to focus, that you need to be able to hold the postures. You've got to be where you are. You've got to accept this is how it is for you today. And it might be different the next time. It might be different than it was last time. But it's all about accepting where you are. And so that's, you know, for me, I have ADHD. My brain is constantly moving, even if my body's moving most of the time. And my brain is certainly moving all the time. And, you know, if I can hold the posture without picking up my fingers, because I do that all the time, that's good. You know, if I can hold the posture for 30 seconds without picking up my thumb skin, then that's great. And it's just finding those little moments and those little moments of growth that's the thing. It's not looking for now I can tie my legs behind my head. That's, who cares? I can't do that. Who cares? I don't care if I never get to do that. But if I can find 30 seconds where I feel calm, that's a huge win. So, you know, it's finding those little wins in it is the help.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Esther, for sharing this, for sharing your time and your experience, your knowledge, and your own story. How breath has been such a powerful. Well, it's a reinvention of you, isn't it? It's like it's changed your life, and
yeah. The person I was 10 years ago wouldn't recognize the person I am now.
All to the good, yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And if anybody's got any questions for you, they can pop them in the comments, and you'll go back in and answer any if any do come up, perhaps on the replay when people are, because it's not always a convenient time for people to watch live. So the different time frames as well. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much. And don't forget to drop your links below the video. Or give them to me and I'll pop them in.
Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And it's been a lovely conversation. Thank you. Really insightful. Bye-bye.